High Admiral Zextar stood before the holographic display of the Sol system, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft blue light of countless stars. The newly discovered system had caught the Kraxan Empire's attention not for its resources or strategic position, but for the peculiar species that inhabited its third planet. Primitive, he chittered to his war council, gesturing at the images of human cities and infrastructure. They've barely mastered basic space travel. Their military technology is centuries behind ours. His secondary arms twitched with anticipation as he manipulated the display, zooming in on various Earth locations. The council chamber, carved from a single massive crystal aboard the flagship Eternal Dawn, housed the 12 highest-ranking military commanders of the Kraxan Empire. Each of them had participated in dozens of successful conquests across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their species had evolved in the crystalline caves of their homeworld, developing both biological armor and a rigid hierarchical society that made them excellent conquerors. General Kristall, the most experienced among them, raised a concern. "High Admiral, our preliminary scans indicate unusual patterns in their historical records. This species has an unprecedented rate of technological advancement." Zextar dismissed the concern with a wave of his primary arm. "All the more reason to strike now, before they become a genuine threat. Look at their divisions. Countless nations, competing ideologies, constant internal conflicts. They'll crumble before a unified assault." The images shifted to show humanity's wars, their weapons, their tactics. The Kraxan War Council studied them with the detached interest of apex predators observing potential prey. They saw the tanks, the aircraft, the primitive nuclear weapons, but failed to recognize the crucial pattern that General Kristall had noticed: humanity's remarkable ability to adapt and innovate during conflicts. "The invasion plan is simple," Zextar continued. "We'll follow the standard Protocol 7. Simultaneous strikes on major military installations, government centers, and communication hubs. Our quantum disruption fields will render their electronic devices useless. Without coordination, their scattered forces will be easily eliminated." The council members nodded in agreement, their crystalline forms creating a symphony of soft chiming sounds. Only Kristall remained still, his ancient eyes fixed on an image of human children playing in a park. "What about the civilian population?" he asked. "Our studies show unusual social bonds and emotional responses in this species." Zextar's response was cold and immediate. "Standard procedure. Those who submit will serve the Empire. Those who resist will be eliminated. Their emotional nature will make them excellent servants once properly broken." The next several hours were spent finalizing the invasion plans. 5,000 ships would emerge from hyperspace simultaneously, positioning themselves strategically around the planet. The quantum disruption fields would activate first, followed by precision strikes from orbit. Ground forces would deploy only after aerial superiority was assured. What the Kraxan Empire failed to understand was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology or military might, but in their incredible capacity for unity in the face of extinction. The very divisions that Zextar saw as weakness would prove to be the crucible that forged an unprecedented human response. As the War Council concluded, Kristall made one final observation. "High Admiral, there's an ancient saying among the conquered worlds: the most dangerous prey is the one that has nothing left to lose." Zextar's crystalline form sparkled with amusement. "Then we shall ensure they lose everything quickly, before they realize their situation. Initiate the final preparation phase. We attack in 30 planetary rotations." As the council members filed out of the chamber, none of them realized they were about to make the greatest mistake in their empire's history. They had studied human weapons, analyzed human tactics, and measured human technology. But they had failed to understand human nature itself. The invasion orders spread through the fleet like crystal fragments catching light. Ships began moving into position, crews performed final checks on their weapon systems, and ground forces prepared their combat suits. The Kraxan Empire had conquered 17 species across the galaxy, and none had survived to mount a serious resistance. But humans would prove different. They would show the galaxy why you only go to war with humanity once, if you survived to learn the lesson at all. In the dark space beyond Saturn's orbit, the Kraxan fleet assembled. 5,000 ships, their crystalline hulls glittering like stars, arranged themselves in attack formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, powered by quantum cores and protected by energy fields that could shrug off nuclear detonations. High Admiral Zexstar stood on his command bridge, watching the fleet's final preparations. "Send the initialization code," he ordered. "Let this be another glorious conquest for the Empire." The code was transmitted, and across 5,000 ships, weapons powered up, shields activated, and hyperspace engines began their preliminary calculations. In 30 days, humanity would face its greatest challenge, and the Kraxan Empire would learn why underestimating humans was the last mistake any species ever made. Far below, on the blue planet that would soon become a battlefield, humanity went about its daily life, unaware of the crystalline death approaching from the outer solar system. But in those final peaceful days, the very traits that the Kraxan saw as weaknesses, humanity's diversity, adaptability, and unbreakable spirit, would prove to be the seeds of their salvation. The first indication that something was wrong came from a small observatory in Chile. Dr. Sarah Chen was reviewing data from their deep space monitoring array when she noticed the anomalies. Thousands of objects, moving in perfect formation, decelerating as they pass Saturn. Within hours, observatories worldwide confirmed her findings. Whatever was out there, it wasn't natural. Humanity had just received irrefutable proof that we weren't alone in the universe, but there would be no time for celebration. Colonel James Harrison stood before the United Nations Security Council, his expression grim as he presented the military's analysis. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at a fleet. Based on their trajectory and deceleration rate, they'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 28 days. The chamber erupted in chaos, but Harrison's voice cut through the noise. "We have to assume their intentions are hostile. No peaceful civilization approaches with a fleet of this size without prior contact." In the days that followed, humanity showed its true nature. Ancient rivalries were set aside. Military secrets were shared. Scientific communities worldwide collaborated with unprecedented openness. The approaching threat had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy couldn't: true global unity. Dr. Chen led the scientific analysis team, working with military and civilian experts from every major nation. Their ships appear to be crystalline in nature, she explained during a briefing. They're absorbing and refracting light in ways that suggest both organic and technological components. The world's military forces mobilized with extraordinary efficiency. Colonel Harrison, now heading the newly formed Earth Defense Initiative, EDI, coordinated with armed forces worldwide. Nuclear weapons were prepared, space-based defense systems were activated, and contingency plans were developed. But humanity's greatest advantage emerged from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a quantum computing researcher in Japan, made a breakthrough while studying the aliens' communication patterns. "They're using quantum-based signals," she announced to the EDI Council. "But their encryption is predictable. They clearly never expected us to intercept, let alone decode their transmissions." Through Dr. Tanaka's work, humanity gained crucial intelligence. They learned the invader's name, the Kraxan Empire. They discovered the planned invasion strategy. Most importantly, they learned about the quantum disruption fields that would target Earth's electronics. With just 2 weeks until the invasion, humanity embarked on the greatest engineering project in its history. Underground facilities were hardened against quantum disruption. Mechanical backup systems were installed in critical infrastructure. But the most ambitious project was the brainchild of Dr. Marcus Wong, a materials scientist from Singapore. "If their ships are crystalline," he proposed, "then they must have specific resonant frequencies. Everything crystalline does. Find those frequencies, and we might have a weapon. The world's laboratories worked around the clock, analyzing the little data they had about the Kraxan ships. Traditional weapons might prove ineffective, but if Dr. Wang's theory was correct, humanity might have a fighting chance. 7 days before the expected invasion, the Kraxan made their first mistake. A small scout ship entered the atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean, likely conducting final reconnaissance. It was shot down by a combination of concentrated electromagnetic pulses and conventional weapons. The wreckage was recovered within hours. Dr. Chen led the analysis team. Their technology is advanced, she reported, but not incomprehensible. They've developed along purely crystalline pathways. No semiconductors, no traditional electronics. It's elegant but limited. The recovered technology provided crucial insights. The Kraxan's crystalline technology was indeed vulnerable to specific frequencies of sonic and electromagnetic energy. Their ship's organic components could be disrupted by targeted bioweapons. Their supposedly impenetrable shields had clear weaknesses that human ingenuity could exploit. As the final days counted down, humanity prepared its trap. The Kraxan expected to find a primitive, divided species. Instead, they would face a unified Earth, armed with countermeasures specifically designed to exploit their weaknesses. Colonel Harrison addressed the Combined Military Command on the eve of the expected invasion. Tomorrow, we show these aliens why humanity has survived every challenge we've ever faced. We adapt, we overcome, and we never, ever give up. Across the planet, people gathered in shelters, watching the skies. Military forces stood ready, their weapons modified with newly developed countermeasures. Satellites had been repositioned, carrying specially designed sonic emitters. In laboratories worldwide, scientists continued working, refining their understanding of Kraxan technology. The quantum disruption fields would still pose a significant threat, but humanity had prepared redundant systems and hardened infrastructure. The Kraxan's carefully planned invasion was about to meet something they hadn't counted on: human innovation and determination. As the first Kraxan ships appeared in Earth's orbit, they transmitted their standard surrender demand, expecting immediate capitulation from a primitive and frightened species. Instead, they received a short response from the Unified Earth Command. "We will not go quietly into the night. Welcome to Earth." The message was transmitted on a frequency that made Kraxan crystalline technology resonate uncomfortably, a small demonstration of humanity's rapid understanding of their enemies' weaknesses. The real surprises would come when the invasion began, and the Kraxan would learn why countless others throughout history had regretted underestimating human resilience. High Admiral Zextar watched in disbelief as the first wave of his invasion force encountered unexpected resistance. The quantum disruption fields had activated as planned, but Earth's military responses remained coordinated and effective. "Impossible. How are they still communicating?" he demanded, his crystalline form vibrating with rage. "Their primitive technology should be useless." The answer came in the form of a devastating counterattack. As Kraxan ships moved into their predetermined positions, they were met with precisely targeted sonic pulses from hastily modified Earth satellites. The crystalline hulls of several ships began to resonate, creating structural weaknesses that conventional weapons could exploit. On the ground, the first wave of Kraxan troops encountered equally unexpected resistance. Their crystalline battle armor, previously impervious to primitive projectile weapons, proved vulnerable to hastily developed sonic weapons. Human soldiers, equipped with modified equipment, engaged the invaders with devastating effectiveness. Dr. Chen coordinated with military commanders from a hardened facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Their ships are attempting to regroup," she reported, watching real-time data from surviving satellites. "They're adjusting their shield frequencies, but we're adjusting our sonic weapons faster than they can adapt." The Kraxan's first major shock came during their attempt to establish a beachhead in northern Africa. Their dropships, descending through the atmosphere in perfect formation, encountered what appeared to be primitive missile launches. The Kraxan commanders didn't even bother raising shields against such outdated weapons. That was their second mistake. The missiles carried payloads developed by Dr. Wang's team, crystalline growth inhibitors combined with targeted electromagnetic pulses. As they detonated around the dropships, the Kraxan's organic crystalline technology began to break down. Ships fell from the sky, their once perfect forms shattering upon impact. Colonel Harrison coordinated the ground response from a mobile command center. "Push them back to their landing zones," he ordered. "Don't let them establish any permanent positions. Show them what human warfare really looks like." The Kraxan soldiers, used to fighting enemies who followed predictable tactical patterns, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to change strategies with every engagement. Human forces utilized guerrilla tactics, electromagnetic warfare, and sonic weapons in constantly shifting combinations. High above Earth, the space battle took an unexpected turn. The Kraxan fleet, attempting to maintain formation despite the sonic attacks, faced a new threat. Dr. Tanaka's team had successfully hijacked several of their communication channels, feeding false orders to significant portions of the fleet. Their hierarchical command structure is their weakness, Dr. Tanaka explained to the EDI Council. They can't adapt quickly enough when communications are compromised. They don't have our experience with decentralized warfare. The turning point came during what would later be known as the Battle of Low Earth Orbit. The Kraxan, frustrated by their lack of progress, attempted to launch a massive coordinated strike against Earth's major population centers. 500 ships moved into position, their weapons powered to maximum. They never got the chance to fire. Dr. Wang's team had completed their masterpiece, a network of orbital platforms that could generate a crystalline resonance field on a massive scale. As the platforms activated, the Kraxan ships found their very structure working against them. Crystal lattices began to vibrate, shields failed, and organic components deteriorated. "The frequency is perfect," Dr. Wang reported, watching the data streams. "Their ship's crystalline structure is literally tearing itself apart." The sight of Kraxan warships breaking apart in orbit became a symbol of hope for the watching world. Humanity hadn't just survived the initial invasion. They had turned the aliens' own technology against them. High Admiral Zextar, watching his carefully planned invasion crumble, made a critical decision. "All ships, withdraw to fallback positions," he ordered. "We must reassess our strategy." But the humans had no intention of giving them time to regroup. As the Kraxan fleet retreated, they faced waves of modified satellites and drones, each equipped with sonic weapons and crystalline growth inhibitors. What should have been an orderly withdrawal became a desperate retreat. On Earth, local military forces overwhelmed the remaining Kraxan ground troops. The invaders' superior technology, compromised by human countermeasures, proved no match for centuries of terrestrial combat experience. Colonel Harrison addressed his troops as they secured the last Kraxan landing zone. "This isn't just a victory for the military," he declared. "This is a triumph of human ingenuity, cooperation, and determination. We've shown them why you never underestimate humanity." In his command ship, now retreating beyond lunar orbit, High Admiral Zextar faced an unfamiliar sensation. Fear. His species had never failed in a conquest, never faced an enemy that could adapt so quickly, fight so fiercely, and unite so effectively. The Kraxan Empire had made a fatal error in assuming that humanity's technological limitations reflected their combat capabilities. They had failed to understand that humans had spent millennia fighting among themselves, developing and refining the art of warfare in ways the Kraxan couldn't comprehend. As the battered Kraxan fleet regrouped, they received a transmission from Earth, broadcasted on their own command frequencies. "This was just our first response. Consider carefully what happens next." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. They were ready to take the fight to the enemy. And the Kraxan Empire was about to learn why starting a war with humans was the last mistake any species would make. 3 months after repelling the Kraxan invasion, humanity was ready to take the next step. In secure facilities worldwide, engineers and scientists had been working to adapt captured Kraxan technology for human use. The crystalline ships that had fallen during the invasion became the foundation for humanity's first interstellar fleet. Dr. Chen stood in the command center of the ESS Defiance, Earth's first hybrid warship. The vessel combined human ingenuity with salvaged Kraxan technology, creating something entirely new. "We've improved their designs," she explained to Colonel Harrison. "Their rigid crystalline structure limited their innovation. We've made it better." The ship's core technology utilized controlled crystal growth guided by quantum fields, but with crucial modifications. Where Kraxan ships were vulnerable to sonic attacks, the human vessels incorporated dampening systems. Where their enemies relied on rigid hierarchical control systems, humanity built in redundancy and autonomous capability. "Operation Lightbringer is ready to commence," Harrison announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "Thanks to Dr. Tanaka's work with their quantum communications, we've mapped their empire's structure. We know their weaknesses, their patrol patterns, and most importantly, the location of their homeworld." The plan was audacious. While the main Earth fleet would engage Kraxan forces in a series of diversionary attacks, a smaller stealth team would penetrate to the heart of their empire. Their mission: to gather intelligence and, if possible, force a surrender before the conflict escalated to full-scale interstellar war. Dr. Tanaka led the infiltration team's technical division. "Their entire civilization is built on crystalline technology," she explained during the final briefing. "But they've become trapped by their own success. They haven't innovated in centuries because they haven't needed to, until now." The stealth mission launched under cover of a larger fleet engagement near the edge of Kraxan space. As their main forces engaged the human fleet, a small team aboard the modified stealth ship ESS Shadow slipped through their defenses. The Kraxan homeworld, Crystallos, was a sight that took the human crew's breath away. The entire planet seemed to shimmer, its surface covered in vast crystalline structures that stretched from pole to pole. Cities rose in geometric perfection, their spires reaching toward the stars. But beneath the surface beauty, the infiltration team discovered dark truths. The Kraxan Empire's rigid hierarchy extended beyond their military. Their entire society was stratified, with lower castes literally grown to serve specific functions. The crystal technology that made them powerful had also made them stagnant. "They're not just an empire," Dr. Tanaka reported back to Earth. "They're a prison of their own making. The crystal technology doesn't just power their ships, it controls their society. Every Kraxan citizen is connected to the network from birth, their role predetermined by their crystalline structure." This discovery provided humanity with both a tactical advantage and a moral dilemma. The team had found the Kraxans' central weakness, but exploiting it would affect not just their military, but their entire civilization. Harrison received the report in the midst of another space battle. "Can we use this information without destroying their society completely?" he asked. Dr. Chen's response came after careful consideration. "We can target their military command structure specifically. A precisely calibrated resonance pulse could disrupt their military network while leaving civilian systems intact. It would be like cutting off the head while preserving the body." The infiltration team worked quickly, planting modified resonance devices at key points in the crystalline network. They had to move carefully. Discovery would mean not just their own deaths, but the failure of humanity's best chance to end the war. Deep in the crystal catacombs beneath the Kraxan capital, Dr. Tanaka made an unexpected discovery. "The original Kraxan weren't like this," she reported. "The crystals were tools, not masters. Somewhere along the way, they became so dependent on the technology that it began to control them instead of the other way around. As the team completed their mission, they left behind something else. A message encoded in the crystalline network itself, designed to reach those Kraxan who might question their society's path." The final phase of Operation Lightbringer began with a single quantum pulse, precisely calibrated and simultaneously transmitted from multiple points. Throughout Kraxan space, military command networks suddenly went dark. ships lost contact with central control. For the first time in centuries, individual Kraxan commanders had to think for themselves. The effect was immediate and devastating. The rigid hierarchy that had made the Kraxan military so efficient now became its greatest weakness. Without direct control from above, many units simply stopped functioning. Others, receiving conflicting orders from local commanders, fell into chaos. But the true impact went deeper. As the military network collapsed, some Kraxan began to feel something they hadn't experienced in generations: freedom of thought. The rigid control that had shaped their society for centuries began to crack. High Admiral Zextar, his command center dark, and his fleet in disarray, received a final message from the humans. Your military has been neutralized, but your civilization can survive. The choice between adaptation and extinction is yours. In his crystalline chamber, surrounded by the technology that had both elevated and imprisoned his species, Zextar faced the hardest decision of his life. The Kraxan Empire had conquered 17 species, but humanity had done something far more profound. They had forced the Kraxan to confront the flaws in their own civilization. The news spread across the galaxy like ripples in a cosmic pond. The undefeated Kraxan Empire had surrendered to a species that had barely achieved spaceflight. More shocking still was the nature of the surrender. Not a total defeat, but a negotiated peace that would reshape both civilizations. In the great crystal hall of the Kraxan High Council, High Admiral Zextar stood before representatives from Earth and the 17 subjugated species of the former empire. His crystalline form, once proud and rigid, showed signs of natural variation, the first visible evidence of the changes sweeping through Kraxan society. We believed our crystalline technology made us superior, he addressed the assembly. Instead, it made us predictable. Humanity showed us that true strength lies not in perfection, but in adaptation. Colonel Harrison, now General Harrison, represented Earth at the proceedings. Beside him stood Dr. Chen, Dr. Tanaka, and Dr. Wang, the architects of humanity's victory. They had come not to gloat, but to build something new. The war is over, Harrison announced, but our real work is just beginning. Humanity didn't fight just to win. We fought to create a future where such wars become unnecessary. The terms of peace were unprecedented in galactic history. The Kraxan would retain their sovereignty but release their conquered worlds. A new interstellar council would be formed, with Earth playing a crucial role as mediator between the crystalline and non-crystalline species. Dr. Tanaka's team worked with progressive elements within Kraxan society to modify their neural network. The rigid control systems were replaced with interfaces that allowed for individual thought and creativity, while maintaining the benefits of their crystalline technology. Your civilization doesn't need to abandon its nature, she explained to a group of young Kraxan scientists. But like the crystals themselves, you need room to grow in new directions. The changes rippled through the former empire. The liberated species, expected to seek revenge, instead found themselves drawn into Earth's vision of interstellar cooperation. Humanity's ability to adapt and integrate different technologies and viewpoints became a model for a new kind of galactic civilization. Dr. Chen led the establishment of the Interstellar Scientific Exchange. Every species has its own path of technological development, she explained during the inaugural ceremony. By sharing our knowledge, we all grow stronger. The first fruits of this cooperation emerged within months. Human innovation combined with Kraxan crystal technology led to breakthroughs in energy production, space travel, and communication. The formerly subjugated species contributed their own unique perspectives and technologies, creating advances that none could have achieved alone. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galaxy viewed warfare itself. The Kraxan defeat became a cautionary tale, studied by species across known space. The lesson was clear. Technological superiority meant nothing without the ability to adapt and innovate. 5 years after the surrender, humanity had established itself as a major galactic power, not through conquest, but through diplomacy and innovation. Earth's ships now traveled trade routes that spanned thousands of light years, recognized not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers and innovators. In a ceremony marking the 5th anniversary of the peace, General Harrison stood before a mixed audience of humans and aliens. "We came to the stars late," he said, "but we brought with us lessons learned through millennia of struggle. War is not about who has the best weapons. It's about who can adapt, who can think differently, who can turn weakness into strength." Zextar, no longer High Admiral, but now serving as a liaison between Kraxon and Earth, added his own reflection. "We went to war with humans thinking we would teach them their place in the galaxy. Instead, they taught us that no species has a fixed place. We all have the potential to grow, to change, to become more than we are." The message spread across the galaxy, passed from species to species. You only go to war with humans once, not because they are unbeatable, but because they will either become your most valuable allies or your most decisive defeat. In the decades that followed, humanity's influence continued to grow. Earth became a center of interstellar culture and innovation, where crystalline Kraxon structures stood alongside architecture from 100 worlds. The hybrid ships that had won the war evolved into vessels of exploration and trade, carrying the combined knowledge and wisdom of multiple civilizations to the stars. Dr. Wong, speaking to a class of mixed-species students at the newly established Galactic Academy on Earth, summed up humanity's journey. "We didn't win because we were stronger or more advanced. We won because we never accepted limitations, never stopped learning, and never forgot that diversity of thought, of approach, of being, is the greatest strength any civilization can possess." And so, the story of humanity's first interstellar war became more than just a tale of victory. It became a lesson written in the stars themselves, that the true measure of a civilization lies not in its achievements, but in its ability to learn, adapt, and grow beyond them. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not as conquerors, but as teachers, showing that the path to the stars is not paved with conquest, but with cooperation, innovation, and the courage to change.